But the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary says that Wednesday's seizure of an oil tanker off the Venezuelan coast was part of efforts to stop drug smuggling. The seizure comes as President Trump ramps up his attacks on President Nicolas Maduro and builds up the U.S. military presence in the Caribbean. Meanwhile, Venezuelan opposition leader and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Corina Machado made her first public appearance in 11 months in Oslo. She praised U.S. efforts to end Maduro's grip on power, saying he's turned Venezuela into a criminal hub.
Some people talk about invasion in Venezuela, the threat of an invasion in Venezuela, and I answered, Venezuela has been already invaded. We have the Russian agents, we have the Iranian agents, we have terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, Hamas, operating freely in accordance with the regime. We have the Colombian guerrilla, the drug cartels that have taken over 60% of our populations, and not only involved in drug trafficking, but in human trafficking, in networks of prostitution. So this has turned Venezuela into the criminal hub of the Americas.
All right, I want to pull in now Christopher Sabatini. He's an expert on Latin America with Chatham House in London. Christopher, good to see you again. We heard Machado there. I mean, she's welcoming the Trump administration's moves, including the seizure of that oil tanker. Is this really her only option at the moment if she wants to end Maduro's rule?
Truth is, the opposition has for a long time attempted many different routes to remove Maduro from power. And she's correct in saying that it is a corrupt regime that engaged in all sorts of illicit activities. She's also been saying correctly that it has welcomed Russian, Iranian, Hezbollah, and Cuban influence. And quite frankly, the Maduro government has, dragged out negotiations, multiple negotiations, and then last year and the year before, basically sort of stole an election in which she had been chosen as the opposition candidate by over 90% of the opposition voters. So, yes, I understand their frustration. Having said that, the idea of banking on Trump to deliver regime change in a policy that, quite frankly, doesn't seem to have the clear logic that many people believe it should have is a risky gamble.
Yeah, a lot of people in the opposition in Venezuela are not necessarily in favor of these U.S. attacks on fishing vessels. And we know that Machado, she has come out in favor of these attacks. Does that make her less of a unifying figure for the opposition movement?
She is a unifying figure because, quite frankly, she won overwhelmingly an opposition primary. And then when the Supreme Court denied her right to be able to be a candidate in the presidential elections of 2024, she threw her weight behind Edmundo Gonzalez, and she campaigned tirelessly across all of Venezuela. She also helped organize a massive effort nationwide to count the votes and demonstrate that the election was stolen from Edmundo Gonzalez and indirectly for her. But the problem is that by endorsing these Trump strikes on the alleged narco trafficking boats, she is, in fact, ignoring the basic fundamental right of democracy, which is due process. The Trump administration has been claiming that these boats are carrying narcotics. And in fact, they've been alleging also they're carrying fentanyl, although Venezuela doesn't produce fentanyl.
Correct.
But they're also doing it without producing any evidence.
We know that Machado is in Oslo at the moment. She said today that the Americans helped her to leave Venezuela to go to Norway, and she plans to go home. What do you imagine is going to happen next for her? And do you assume that the Americans will also play a role in getting her back to her home country?
They probably will have to. They have a massive array of assets off the coast of Venezuela, more than 10 ships. They've been flying planes on the border of Venezuelan airspace and even into Venezuelan airspace. They will need to provide intelligence that helps her evade Nicolas Maduro's attempts to probably block her from re-entering the country. Because quite frankly, one of Maria Corina Machado's greatest strengths is that she's in Venezuela. It's many Venezuelan leaders have left the country, either been forced to or have chosen to leave. And they're political stock has changed dramatically. Her primary role is to be inside Venezuela, to have contact with the Venezuelan people. Even if she isn't in personal contact with them, the fact that she's there and communicating with them through social media is very important. So it is essential that she gets back in. But clearly, the Nicolas Maduro government is going to try to prevent her from re-entering. They would very much love her to join the ranks of multiple political leaders of the opposition who have gone into exile and whose political stock is, quite frankly, faded.
Christopher Sabatini with Chatham House in London. Christopher, we appreciate your time and your insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
All right, joining me here in the studio now is our reporter, Oscar Schlenker. Oscar spent many years reporting from Caracas. It's good to have you here with us. Oscar, you were just in Oslo for the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony. We know that Machado is now there. Did she make the right decision in deciding to leave Venezuela at this point in time?
Well, I think so, yes, because what was she doing in Venezuela except hiding and giving interviews here and there? Leaving Venezuela really shows that the Maduro's administration doesn't have as much control of what happens in their country as what they would like to show. And that somebody like Maria Corina Machado, who is a high-profile opposition leader that is in hiding in Venezuela, is able to escape with all the difficulties that it was for her to leave and to escape to go to Oslo.
Yes, she said the Americans played a role in getting her out of the country and getting her to Oslo. She says she wants to go back. Do you think is it safe to assume the Americans are going to help her go back? I mean, can she go back to Venezuela without fear of being arrested?
Well, I don't think she can go back without that fear. There's a lot of risk in her going back. I think she does need the help of the U.S., and I think she's playing the cards that have been dealt with to her. I don't think she's calling the shots on that, really. I think the U.S. Trump's administration is calling the shots in this operation.
What does that mean? What does that mean for her, though? I mean, she's already said that she supports the U.S. policy towards Venezuela at the moment.
Well, definitely. I think she's playing a diplomatic strategy on that situation. There's nothing much she can do otherwise than to see how this all plays out between Trump and Maduro.
What do you think this is doing, though, to the unity of the opposition, with her saying that she supports Trump's policies, including the attacks on these fishing vessels? I mean, is this a move that's going to keep the opposition united?
I think so, yes. The opposition, all the different oppositions there are in Venezuela, there's from communist parties to more conservative parties, and they're all supporting her because this is what we've been reporting as well during all these years, that criminal organizations, international organizations, have taken control of our government and are fueling our government's repressive machine. We have over 1,000 political prisoners, with some of them dying in their custody. There's a lot of torture. There's human rights and crimes against humanity being committed. And just today, the UN published a report that's accusing the Venezuelan armed forces of committing crimes against humanity and human rights violations. And I think that is a step forward into a democratic change in Venezuela as well.
U.S. President Trump was recently asked what would happen to Venezuela's oil if the United States invades the country. And he answered, he shrugged and answered by saying, "We keep it, I guess." How does that help to unify the opposition in the country?
Well, I think the U.S. already has Venezuela's oil. Chevron is still exporting oil from Venezuela into the U.S. And the oil production in Venezuela is not as it was some years ago. There needs to be at least $21 billion invested in our infrastructure to get back to the production that we had several years ago. So it is very costly to bring our industry back up and running as it was. There's not much from that oil revenue. And that's why the Maduro's administration has had to resort to criminal operations to keep their regime afloat.
I know you have a lot of ties in Venezuela. You still have lots of contacts with people there. Do they have faith in a U.S. invasion? Do they think that is what it's going to take to end the Maduro regime?
I think there is a lot of mistrust on Trump We've seen Trump treat Venezuelans very badly in the U.S. with the deportations from Venezuelans that were just trying to escape Maduro's regime. And it's very unfortunate that a lot of Venezuelans feel trapped between a regime like Maduro's and an administration that's becoming more authoritative like Trump's. But I think there is faith in change, and that's what many people are hoping.
Yes or no, will the Nobel Peace Prize help to strengthen Machado?
Yes.
All right. Oscar Slinker, Oscar, good to have you in the studio. Good to get that short answer from you, too. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's talk about all of this with Jesus Renzullo. He is with the Giga Institute for Latin America Studies, is based here in Berlin. Welcome to DW. So we just heard Maria Corina Machado there. She did appear to avoid answering questions directly about a possible US invasion of Venezuela. I mean, what do you think? Is she hoping for the US to help oust President Maduro?
Maria Corina Machado finds herself in a really difficult position. Unlike in 2019, the Maduro administration has a better grip on power. Security apparatus is under control. Economic crisis has been somewhat managed. And many society, civil protest groups like universities and NGOs have been either muffled or have been taken into a migration crisis. That means that she finds herself only two tools to maintain power or to get power. The first is the popular support that she has on the population of Venezuela. And the second is external support. So yes, she is hoping some support from the United States. That doesn't necessarily mean invasion. I think she is mostly agreeing with this external pressure mentality of Donald Trump to create an implosion in Caracas.
You talk about pressure, and President Maduro is under growing pressure. We've, of course, been reporting just last night the US seized a Venezuelan oil tanker. What do you see Washington's strategy as being here?
The strategy is the same as has been since the beginning of the operation. Basically, they are trying to create enough pressure inside Caracas elite, so Caracas elite throws Maduro out, finding him way more costly than agreeing with Donald Trump's demands. That does the Donald Trump administration is isolationist by nature, and they doesn't like to incur in costs, but they like to create threats that might seem like they are willing to involve a lot. That doesn't mean that they necessarily will invade, but that means that they are trying to convince the elite in Caracas that Maduro is not worth the trouble.
Maria Corina Machado, she will return to Venezuela after her visit to Norway. Presumably, she'll have to go right back into hiding. What role can she continue to play there as the leader of the opposition?
That is the most difficult question, I think, because the opposition leaders, both Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo González, found themselves now out of the country. Edmundo has been trying to come back. We saw the attempts in January, and he failed. The Venezuelan government might be willing to let the opposition leaders leave, but they are going to make it really difficult for them to come back. Maintaining an opposition in the exile is extremely difficult, and maintaining an opposition momentum while hiding is even more difficult. This is the biggest hurdle that Maria Corina Machado has. She hasn't tested her popularity and her capacity to mobilize the population in 10 months. This is something that she will have to face. If she ever comes back to the country, she will have to start regaining the momentum that she has lost since the beginning of 2025.
Do you think this trip to Norway will have helped her? I mean, she repeatedly spoke about freedom, about democracy. How impactful do you think her presence in Oslo was?
Her presence in Oslo is impactful on an international level. It creates more awareness of what the situation in Venezuela is, and it gives more idea to the leaders on the world of who this leader is, or who this opposition leader is, and whether they should support her. How does this impact in the internal support inside Venezuela for Maria Corina Machado? That is more of a difficult question and more difficult to answer. In October 2023, she had ample support from the opposition and from the Venezuelan population. Now we need to see whether that support has maintained, has diminished, or has increased.
Jesus Renzullo from the Giga Institute for Latin America Studies. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks to you.